probably have a few transitions as we move between different devices up here to get them showing. So I want to first introduce down the line, just ignore him. He's the engineer. Down the line, I'll let everybody introduce themselves. Actually, that's easier. And then what we're going to do is pretty quickly roll it out to you guys. So be thinking about, and what I'm going to be saying is, what are you guys working on? Do you have something specific you want to ask? There's something, if you guys want to talk to each other. The idea of this is a little more, we really want this to be more of a dialogue if we can. So let's just start right off the bat and let's get going. I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm David Marlette. We've been doing, some of you guys saw the panel yesterday. We've been creating a project. Well, actually, I'll talk about my project at the end. Let me first just go to Chanel and we'll start from there.
Hi, I'm Chanel Summers.
You might need to get closer to the mic.
I'm used to always projecting. I can't stand these types of mics, but whatever. Hi, I'm Chanel Summers. I'm a sound designer. I'm an interactive audio technologist. I'm an educator. I've basically worked for most of my professional career in the video games industry, focusing primarily on interactive audio for digital media. However, I started off my career as a game designer and game producer at some early innovating companies, including Microsoft, where I helped ship their first ever massively multiplayer game, Fighter Ace, and then moved on to the Windows DirectX side of the house, where we started pioneering in the area of interactive audio technology with a really fantastic, innovative DirectX technology called Direct Music. Then worked on the original Xbox team and helped to design the audio subsystem for that groundbreaking console. And now I own and run my own audio production company, Syndicate 17, in which we also consult with a variety of innovative technology companies on doing audio design and production for emergent technology, mostly a lot of AR in physical spaces, but also starting to work a lot in the VR space as well. And I'm also a professor at USC in the Interactive Media and Games division.
So you're not really doing anything, are you?
I got a lot of time on my hands.
No idea why you're on this panel. Okay. Next up.
Okay, good morning. My name is Rodrigo Cerqueira. My American friends call me Rod. I think it's easy. I've been in panoramic and video industry for 5 years. Actually, I've been doing panoramic videos mostly my entire video career. So I'm a panoramic video guy, essentially. I run a company in Brazil named Panogramma. What we do is we want to explore the boundaries of what panoramic video can do for live entertainment, VOD, films, music, tourism, education. So right now we're building 4 platforms for virtual reality, which I would love to share with you later on in this year, somewhere later this year. And I would like to explore more about how can we help directors, writers, screenplayers, industry, and the general to explore more about virtual reality and panoramic video industry. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dylan Southard. I'm the creative director of Virtual VR Playhouse, which is a creative studio. We make cinematic immersive content for virtual reality. And prior to that, I worked as a dramaturg in the theater industry, so to speak, in new play development, working with theater companies, regional theater companies, and playwrights in terms of story building and story structure and editorial work.
Cool. Kara?
Hello, testing. I'm Kara Fry. I'm an actress, and I got the opportunity to work on this film, which was extremely exciting.
Yeah, we're very glad to have Kara here. And as I was telling her, it's really unique. I'm glad she's here because I too have been to a lot of these panels, and we've yet to see someone, one of the talent that was actually on the other side of the camera who was in one of these immersive experiences. And so I'm really glad to have you here so we'll just turn over the rest of the whole panel to you, and you can just talk. Okay, great. And what we're going to do real quick is even though I'm moderating this and one of these is our projects, I promise this is not just about our film at all. And so, but I will start off real quick with a couple of slides on Ayers, on what we shot, and then we'll do a little engineering handoff, and we're going to go, we'll cover those, a couple others, and I know Chanel and Rod's got something to show you, and then we'll roll on in. So Cinemerge is our company, and go to the next, just kick off that thing. We shot Manslaughter. We did it differently than I've heard everybody else so far talking about. In fact, I originally sat down. I've been writing in the film industry for quite a while and creating, and I'm a novelist and blah 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 blah. But story is what's fascinating to me, and the technology was fascinating. I sat down last fall and said I had a film project I wanted to do, but I didn't want our first one out of the chute to be that low res GoPro ball look. And so I went back to the engineers and said, okay, what can we do? What can I do? And so we designed a system where we're shooting in 4 quadrants. We actually we just have a locked off camera against a giant cyc. And we can shoot these 4 90-degree scenes, and then using gaming engines, we're loading, and we're going to be talking post-productions of the next panel. But we're loading them in to then be a 360-degree environment. So the story is running all around you. All these scenes are around you, and you're trying to figure out. It's a murder mystery. The murder is actually happening behind you in the audience of this. And this is an early rendering, by the way. This is just a previs. It doesn't. You'll see a couple of shots from the actual set here and coming up. So it's consecutively. The scenes would, if you put them all back to back, would be over an hour long. We're still not sure how long people really want to be in a VR experience, so they run concurrently. So they're actually running it all at the same time, but as you turn your head, you actually get to listen to the dialogue, and you can hear some of the audio from the band becomes my soundtrack for these other drama scenes. When you turn around, you get the full hit of the band. I know this seems a little strange. We're all gonna. It's gonna be a fun experience. And as you start figuring it out, that there's a murder being planned in these scenes in front of you. I mean, the front three scenes. Then you start hearing them talking about trying to get their victim to a concert, and then you start thinking, "Oh shit, they're gonna kill him behind me." And then you start realizing what's happening. And so we really expect this to be a multiple view experience. Where you can go back in and say, "Oh my God, did you see this? Did you see that? No, I didn't see that. I'm going to go back and look at this." And it took some crafty, or some I shouldn't say. It just took some careful. That's a better word. Writing, trying to think about from the audience's point of view, how long before, like the first 60 seconds, I didn't want any really strong material that's really plot driven to be in the dialogues. So that just give people time to kind of acclimate. I mean, we're learning. I mean, you guys all know this is on the first, so we're learning as we go. And even tried to pace out, try to figure out the timing of the important dialogue information so that it's a better chance people will pick up on it. We're not using audio clues to drag you to the different scenes. But in the gun store scene, for example, you're gonna have a guy pointing an AR-15 at you about 6 feet away. He doesn't see you there. It's really distracting not to look over there. And over here, someone's in bed, the girl's in bed, and they're talking over here. It's distracting, and I'm trying to intentionally play you off of that. So there's a lot of the design we made for the visual clues to get people to take a look around. Let's just go to the next one, and I'll wrap up. There's Kara in one of the behind the scenes practicing you saw the gun store scene, and these are all just a couple of behind the scenes as we were shooting against that site. As you can see, there's Kara in the background. You do not want to mess with her. She got quite skilled with different types of weaponry in this. What we're doing was we shot 2D on this. We shot mono, and that was a big discussion that went on a lot of time. And heading into this, because I originally went, "Oh my God, no, I want to shoot 3D." And our DP and everybody was pushing back on me pretty heavily about that. I just went in with this idea I had to really sell this immersive deal, and I was finally convinced that that it was just the headaches were going to be too hard at the peripherals, at the 3D, trying to do that. We just finally said, okay, I'm going to shoot 2D, but we're going to shoot 6K, 60 frames a second, and we're going to build in some optic depth of fields. So, for example, when you're in this thing and you see the the white wall, you're in this giant white, white sphere, you feel like you're in this white void, but the holes that sort of punch through it, we go back to that bedroom, are where we just did some depth of field of green screen into the windows, which we lay in the neighborhood's going to be out past those. In the gun store, you're looking out through the doors and you see the parking lot and everything else. So we're doing that part of it is only CG or post effects work that we're doing. Trying to add some depth of field to it. And I think it's basic. What else was it? Was on the one more, and I want to quickly get off this. Yeah, our use, and I know Kara's going to mention this, our use of the Oculus on set was terrific tool to have, made a big difference. Took a little bit to hack into our system and had a DP who was determined to do it. So it's been a lot of hours to get it working. But it made a lot of difference. I know Kara is going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, are we ready to, so that's a little quick on manslaughter, which we can come back to if we want. August 15th is our release date. It'll be on all devices. I want to move to Chanel's.
Do we think we have audio?
We have a little bit of an engineering. Any questions? And meanwhile, while we have a little engineering interlude, anything? The name, Man's Laughter or Manslaughter. Yeah, it just came to me. It sort of fit the project, and it's we don't. Unfortunately, people. Not unfortunately, people first think it's a horror because it's manslaughter, but it actually, when you figure out the story, you get the point. The men are the victim in this case, as Kara can attest.
I guess I would be interested in everybody going down and talking about what was one of the preconceived notions they had before 360 that they had to change.
That's a great question. Did everybody hear that? She said, everybody hear that? Sort of preconceived notion before. Why don't we just add that in to everybody? We're kind of walking back down through the line here a little bit again, and maybe you'll add that into what you want to say, Chanel. Your comment on that, on her question.
Oh, no.
After you go ahead with doing what you're doing, and I'll bring you back to her question.
Hopefully we have audio here.
Oh.
So let me just put this out to the audience. Is anybody familiar with the Leviathan project, the evolution of storytelling? How many people in the room are familiar with that? Okay, so very few people. Okay, so this was a project that was done in conjunction with the USC World Building Media Labs, which is headed up by Alex McDowell, very famous production designer. He was responsible for everything that happened in the Minority Report, all those sort of futuristic interfaces. And we did this in conjunction also with Intel Labs. And let me actually, can I play a quick video?
Yeah.
With Intel CEO actually showing this off, because this will be the best way to explain it. Yeah, and then I'll come back and show. So this works.
Storytelling is taking on an amazing form. No longer limited to a flat book, a flat screen. With the right technology that we can enable, we can be immersed in this story. Some of you may know Scott Westerfield's book, Leviathan. Leviathan is the story of a whale airship. Up until now, you've been at best engaged in that story. So that's great. But what if we could do more? What if we could bring the digital world into our world? Imagine Leviathan could be here in this room with us tonight, flying just above your heads. Wouldn't you want to reach out and touch it, wave to it, see it from every angle? Remember, I told you this was an immersive event tonight. Tonight, I don't want you to merely imagine a flying whale. I want you to experience it. Sight, sound, all of it.
And I'll pass it down for taking up some time there, but in a little while, I'll bring the whale out here for everybody to say hello to.
I'm hoping so. I'm looking around. Shall we move on now and come back? Okay. All right. So do you want to help? We may need to switch places with you. Thank you. Again, during the engineering interlude, I'll tell you at least my answer to that question about which was assumptions that I had before that I learned weren't valid. Is that or didn't quite work? I'll say some things that got revealed on the set that I went, oh my God, I forgot about this. Was the fact that if anything happened to disappear outside of the lines, we could be, because we did all long takes. So, I mean, every scene is a long take. So, Kara can attest. If anybody's elbow barely went out of frame of our lines on our monitor screen, we knew where our 90 degrees were. We knew that would turn into white nothing, right? So we weren't going to make up that outside, even outside of that 90 degrees. So we'd have to call cut, and we had to end up having a bit of having to re-engineer. I don't know if this is my quick answer to your question. Some of that, just having to rethink. Okay, wait a minute. No, I can't make up for that. It's maybe it's not out of frame for the camera. It's out of the frame of our 90 degrees, which we had to mark on the floors to make sure. You see what I'm saying? So that was it caused some interesting things I hadn't anticipated.
All right.
Yes. Are we ready? Okay.
Okay. I would like to explore a little bit more about the production side of the virtual reality and panoramic video with you today. Basically, like I mentioned, Panorama is a virtual reality studio lab down in Brazil. Our R&D is in Canada, and we are in about 2 or 3 months open up another office here in LA. Obviously, everybody needs to be right now. Panorama is me and João Marcelo Boscoli. João Marcelo is a really hardcore guy in the music niche in Brazil. His father is one of the creators of Bossa Nova, which I believe you already heard and enjoy. Basically, when we talk about do movies or do experiences for virtual reality, we're talking about lots of mediums, and perhaps some of you already play around with all those mediums together. But when we film for virtual reality or when we film for panoramic video, actually, I always thinking about in a director's perspective and in an audience perspective, how can I deploy it at the desktop? How can I deploy it the web? How can I do it with mobile? How can I do it with domes or 3-screen cinemas or mobile VR, right? Or games and OTT, and how can I broadcast it to the television? So one of our experiences in the last 5 years was, let's say, brand content. We work with all those great brands all over the world. And I would like to explore a little bit of the best of everything with you today. We did a case for FIFA Embratur World Cup 2014, which we work along with the Ministry of Tourism in Brazil. Basically, we travel more than 30,000 miles over the for 18 months. Comes to post-production, distribution. We ended up with 12 films of 5 minutes each of each held city of the World Cup. At the first time we screened it, it was in Brussels, and we did it with virtual reality glasses in 2011. We used that time Vuzix. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Vuzix, but Vuzix was probably one of the, let's say, most well-known head-mounted displays on the market at 2011 and 2010. So it was like long ago, seems right now. And for this particular client, we have a budget of about $1.5 million to do everything. So basically, we were on the field for 18 months with a crew like 12 people. And we travel all around Brazil. I'm talking about, you know, get your equipment and get your crew prepared to be 1 week inside Amazon jungle, right? With natives, Brazilian natives. It's a kind of thing that when you think about, okay, I can do it with traditional film. Well, but how can you pass this camera for me, please? Okay, thank you. How can a camera like this will react when in this kind of conditions, right? Or what if I would like to swim in with the dolphins, right? In the Amazon River. Will it be good? Will the end of this film will be engaged enough? So we needed to face this kind of challenges in order to do this. And this was, just for a second, this was one of the cameras we came up with for another client of us last year. So it's like a tape engineer camera. I could demonstrate a little bit about this one a little later. For Honda, we had this incredible opportunity to give the audience a virtual ride experience, which means Honda would like to launch 3 bikes. So we were invited for them. Well, what about to have a virtual reality ride bike? And we say yes. So we have like 6-day shooting. Ended up with 3 panoramic movies. We filmed it with traditional and 360 at the same venue. We have YouTube publishing, and just in 24 hours, we have 200,000 visits. Obviously, it was one of the best ROI that Honda has in its history. It costs like $30,500 to make it. I could share with you a little bit about this one here. Can we go? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, and maybe the last one. IBM for World Cup 2014. We held the World Cup, right? So makes sense to have a virtual reality virtual reality cameras on the ground, which was like really explored from Fraunhofer guys from German. But IBM came up with this idea to, there's soccer, there's a ball, there's Little Planet projection. So let's make a movie in Little Plane projection. So we did this movie. I'm not sure how many of you have watched it.
Desde moleque, cara, sempre gostei de jogar, de assistir, de discutir, de comentar, dar minha opinião. O que eu curti nessa ferramenta é que ela vai dar uma voz pra gente. Ela analisa as opiniões nas redes sociais e mostra quem é o melhor da partida na hora, em tempo real, na opinião de todo mundo. Agora somos 200 milhões de especialistas.
Thank you. So basically, it was a crazy shot. We had like 150 crew, guys, staff, characters, main character. We had a storytelling to guide us. Ogilvy was responsible for this. So we had like tons of pre-production and discuss with this and that. So it was a really good one to work with. but it's kind of frightening when you are on the set and you rely only basically with your tiny GoPro rig, right? And it was only one day shooting. And as today at the YouTube, this one has 3.5 million users. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Good.
Did you bring any show and tell? You didn't. Oh, okay. No, it's quite all right. It's quite all right.
But I can tell you a little bit about what we're doing at VR Playhouse. So like I said, we're making cinematic immersive content for VR. That's mostly live action stuff, starting to get into a little bit of the CG stuff as well, and branded content for companies like Red Bull, and a lot of original narrative content. And that's sort of where I come into play in the company is, to some extent, separating myself from the technology that exists, and all the questions that come with that, and just focusing on storytelling and especially the audience's experience and sort of what is going to engage them, not just in a sort of literal where their eyes are going, but sort of emotionally, what is going to make for a sort of emotionally satisfying and resonant experience for them when we're talking about spherical filmmaking and 360-degree storytelling and being sort of immersive. And so in regards to your question, something that I sort of assumed or something that I came to learn the more I was watching content and thinking about creating content and starting to write content and starting to talk to other writers about content was that, your instinct is to think that when you're watching this or when you're creating something like this, that you need to sort of fill up the entire 360 degrees with stuff because people are going to put it on and they're going to want to look around everywhere, and you've got to want to give them stuff to look at, and you've got to sort of fill up this experience. And to some extent, I think that's true. But what I'm coming to learn is that that the other really great, powerful thing about VR, beyond its sort of ability to immerse you in an environment, is that it's an extremely intimate experience. It feels very unique to you in that moment. And so, to some degree, you do want your the attention, the storytelling attention, focused. Which is a little bit contrary, again, because you feel like you want to give them a lot to do, but because of the intimacy of that environment, whatever environment it is virtually, to some degree, the intimacy of it is really the most powerful thing about it, and it's something that we're certainly exploring in our storytelling and the kinds of stories that work best in VR and that work better in VR than they do in any other medium. And there are those stories.
Cool. Kara, can you, before we're going, and we'll go back to another, open up, whoever's next question, you can be thinking about it. But Kara, tell us a little bit about your experience, and also, I'm also going back to this question of what was one of your bigger surprises on it? Or things you didn't expect on that set.
Well, initially, I loved your writing, and I kind of saw your vision, but I didn't really understand it fully.
Okay, pick up your check on the way out the door.
Until I actually put the Oculus on and saw one of the scenes we did. It was unbelievable. You would have thought I won a car or something. You're completely immersed into the scene. You're right. You feel completely intimate with the people. It's amazing. You're completely just there. You just want to look at every little thing, and you want to you feel like you're with them part of in that world. So once I saw that, I was overly excited. I can't wait to see what happens, and I do think it's the future, if anything, in home entertainment.
Okay, cool. And in the actual performance, did you?
The performance was a little different from an actor standpoint. You're not cutting every 3 lines or every scene. We ran full through the full 14 minutes. So for me, it was great because you kind of just could let go. You're not always stopping, and you really feel like you are in that world, and you become that character. So that's the big difference. So it's not as choppy. It's almost like a theatrical performance, but you're not playing to the camera or to an audience. You're completely in your own world, like you are in the moment. Every day a slice of life.
Cool. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, I'm here, you know, stereoscopic seems like it's really important for presence in VR. It seems like it is just because you got that depth of field, you feel like you're, the more depth you have, the more you feel like you're there. Yet I'm hearing a lot of people talk about how difficult it is to capture in 3D and to export, et cetera. You guys talk to both the capture side and the post-production side.
We'll talk post-production. I promised that I don't want to step on the toes of the next panel, which is all post-production distribution. But I'll tell you from the director's point of view, you know, artistically, yes, I kept hearing, oh my God, I got to shoot this. I got to shoot it. I went into this presumption I had to shoot 3D. So we're getting 3D rigs. I was thinking, do I need a beam splitter because we're shooting less than 20 feet? How am I going to do that? And it was the engineers who got to me. There's many, how much engineering went on in this. We're running through the peripheral parts. If I'm turning and as I come through that line, the 3D is made for that. As I come through, now I'm picking up another 3D camera. I was convinced. They finally convinced me that the problems and honestly the cost was going to be outweigh if I could shoot in high enough resolution and I could design my sets well enough to play depth of field. And I finally just said, okay, fine, we'll just go. You know, this is an experiment. Let's just shoot. We'll shoot at mine. So that was my thought process.
You kept them in certain quadrants, right?
Right. We had a locked off camera on the giant side. Lighting's the same, camera's the same. That took a long time just to get it set there because once it's there, we're committed for the whole rest of the shoot. Right. And then we just moved sets in front of pre-designed sets in front of that camera for each scene.
I would say that.
Yeah, somebody else can answer this.
I would add that in a panoramic director's perspective, most of traditional directors used to have like this frame vision, right? Every time I was in set, I was like, excuse me for that. Instead to do this, I do like.
Exactly.
So it's something we develop in order to understand what actually we'll develop, we'll deploy afterwards. And it's really important when you do it because you always thinking about how can I edit this, right? Where are going to be seams? How can I stitch it together? Will my character will be just in front of the camera or it will be just between two cameras? That would be a nightmare for me, right? So we do this, well, you get along with a better way to think about it.
And I actually wanted to add all the challenges that we're trying to figure out in the audio world with virtual reality and spatialization, 3D audio. You know, the whole thing of like localized point sources, binaural, you know, realistic representation of audio, sound propagation and geometry and how sounds reflect and bounce off walls in different environments. All sorts of things like that. The other things of like occlusion, obstruction, basically what those are, if you're in one room and like say a creature's in another room, hearing like muffled voices instead of clear, or, you know, with obstruction, maybe hiding behind an obstacle like a boulder or something and how the sounds reflect and reach your ears, you know, direct sound versus reflected sound. And so we're trying to work out all of that as well. However, with all that tech stuff we're trying to kind of figure out and navigate and build, what I want to emphasize though is that the artistic aesthetic side is always the most important side. So there might be things that we're not getting fully correctly right yet with like audio, like things where you like walk away from a waterfall, but the waterfall still kind of follows you. It doesn't stay where it's supposed to stay. Or like we don't have really correct actual height mapping yet. You know, we're sort of still simulating it. But the thing is that a colleague of mine who worked on Project Syria, this was at Sundance, it debuted at the economics, A very, very successful project. Here's the thing about the audio. One of the things that made the project actually was the audio, but it wasn't correctly done at all. It was, I mean, basically, my colleague used a surround sound mic and then mixed it down to stereo. So what that meant was, if I walked around and I walked away from something, the volume would not attenuate. So it wouldn't the volume wouldn't drop down as I walked away from something, the frequencies wouldn't drop down. You were still very much surrounded by all the audio. But you know what? Nobody cared about that. What they loved is that it was well done aesthetically. So sometimes I feel that we get so bogged down by the technology. Oh, what's the new latest tech? What's like the recorders? What's like the cameras? What's this? Always what our focus should be is first the story, the experience, the art. Because that's always going to trump any kind of realistic type of technology.
Yeah, and I just, on that note, I just want to say what I find personally very exciting right now is that you're seeing artists learning entirely new languages and entirely new ways of expressing themselves. We talked about acting within these sort of film shoots and how it's in a very different experience. And I personally think you're going to see a lot of people coming over from theater into this world because the mediums, in terms of the storytelling and the way in which it is done, it's very, very similar. So you're just beginning to see directors and actors and designers begin to sort of think about storytelling and how it is unique and how it functions uniquely within 360. And you're going to see some really cool stories, I think.
Yeah, I was hoping that, like when Kara was saying that, a lot of us have theater experience and I've acted and been on stage, but it's that sensation of being able to be free, which I am hoping we'll hear more of. And I was kind of really curious about that when you were on set, was that sense of, because I kept saying, listen, don't play to the camera, don't do anything. I want you got to be just there. You're just there. And that's and it's a long run. That's some, like you were saying, hoping that's a very liberating thing. It's a very different feeling for the actors. I was going to say, Rod, here was me on the set. Just trying to imagine that. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Okay,
But you know what? If I was an actor today, I would buy one of these. This Ricoh Theta with basically a $200 camera, and I would practice with this like here, right? And then I'll put it on my glasses and check how it was. Because this is the most affordable way to, film in 360 today. Okay, it's a little bit crap. Sorry, Ricoh, for that. But it will improve, right? So imagine 5 years, guys. You're gonna have this in 8K. That's it.
Okay, another question. We're gonna run a little long, but we're running into our own panel next. So, yes.
All right. I do have a question with the acting, especially because I started in theater with the drama here and the editing and the takes, because that is interesting. The whole idea of the theater actors now being able to come back in and compete with film actors.
Mm-hmm.
So are the takes longer because you don't, as far as like the editing process, where you can do it over and over again and you cut it to just where you get the performance where you want it, or is it really more relying on the acting and taking longer?
Well, also you kind of want it to, from a storytelling standpoint, you kind of want them to be long takes because, there is that moment, you want to give them time to sort of be in the space and look around and so sort of cutting a lot is a little bit jarring, especially jarring in VR. And so that's why it's a little bit like theater in that, the audience is to some degree fixed. And I mean, they're going to be able to move their head, but they're sort of choosing what they're looking at within a space. And there is no sort of ability to change that perspective too dramatically. I mean, there is, but you don't want to do it. And so the upshot is that you get to tell these sort of long stories the way that they're done in theater. And we're discovering that a lot of things are similar. The pace of storytelling and the way it sort of operates in VR is very much the same.
Ours was one of the things we discovered, back kind of to your question, was I didn't realize really till I got on, well, we kind of realized it earlier on, we were doing early renderings, but the audience, instead of, like if we had the gun store scene, obviously, if we were shooting this traditionally, we could be on set in an actual gun store on location or whatever else, and we can cut around and cut and cheat and all these other things. My audience can stand there. You guys, when you get it, you can spend your whole 15 minutes just sitting here looking at my gun store, just going, and see every little detail and check out if those guns are really right. They're sitting there in the gun case, and it's a little intimidating in the sense of production design. It's something different that you can spend. The audience can just spend some time. It's not quite on your question, but it's similar.
If I direct some movies
Yeah.
that we had cuts, I would stay between 8 to 12 seconds transitions between the cuts. Otherwise, it will be a little bit of a dizzy or whatever because it's too fast.
Yeah, it's frustrating. You
yeah,
just
yeah,
want- yeah.
Yeah, but you can take long cuts as well.
Because-
But if I need to cut between 8 and 12, that's my experience.
Do you guys? I'll ask this back to the panel. Do you guys feel like the audience is going? I'm kind of of the thought that it's going to be about evolution, the evolution of the audience. I mean, as we've gotten to jump cuts and all kinds of handhelds and everything, people have gotten more used to that. I'm wondering what's that curve going to be before. I wonder what the audience will be okay with a bunch of cuts, even in VR.
I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years, right?
Right.
So my audience already step on it.
Okay.
I mean, we start with like 1.5 times. Everybody saw the same movie, and then 2.7, and then 3.7. Right now, we're almost the cutting edge that you want to see every kind of detail possible, right? So you want to see that character. So you hear something behind you, you go back again and you watch it again, and watch it again, and then watch it again. So I think the next 2 years, the audience will be more involved in kind of a CGI or film type of virtual reality experiences. And then, I don't know. I will give
Could be
2
interesting.
more years, and then we'll see.
Well, and I also think that the other interesting comparison is like a theme park ride and how an audience sort of how they function and what they're choosing to look at in a theme park ride and how rides are organized, and that there are times in which there's a lot to look at, and there's times in which the ride will stop and there's a single point to look at. And so I think there's to some degree, audiences sort of already know how to do this. I mean, there is going to be a learning curve. I mean, the learning curve I'm really interested in is the learning curve of the writers and the actors and the directors and how they best take advantage of what 360 can do and the kinds of experiences they can deliver to an audience.
Well, that leads me to my next point. Back to the audience again. Is that it's going to be a matter of people having a lot of experiences with a lot of different types of films, and I mean, VR films, and the audience starts building up. Obviously, they don't yet. So back to out here, who's got a film? Either I call it a film. Yeah, we all understand what I mean. A VR experience that they're either working on now. I mean, like they're actually, or I mean, just something that's in development or pre-production, or even in production. Okay, do you mind if I call on you and you just tell us a little bit about it? Or are you not ready to talk about it? Anybody ready to talk, or, willing to talk a little bit about what they're doing? Go ahead.
So the Innovation Lab is ready to kind of prototype a storytelling experience for telling a story with the connected screens and smart apps. And a lot of what we learned was much like what you're saying, is that it has much more in common with theme parks as cameras. About 3/4 of the way through the project, I realized that what I was building felt an awful lot like a haunted mansion.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
I can talk.
go ahead, please.
I'm filming a Bigfoot version, a Brazilian Bigfoot version in VR. That's all I can talk right now.
Well, we have a couple that we're in pre-production on right now, but yes, sir.
I'm working on a documentary on Easy Rider. And
Oh.
we'll be using that VR to have the audience experience that and go through what tactics and how to maybe for riding down the road.
Can we go riding with them?
Yes.
Awesome.
We're in the process of putting that together, and we're hoping that and interviews with the actors on a 360 degrees will bring in more of the audience into the film that we're working with.
That'll be interesting.
I have a question. Is everybody doing just seated experiences, or is anybody out there doing completely like you're wandering freely in an environment that's being mapped out for you, so it's safe to walk in there, but a full-on free environment? Yeah.
Somewhat. Go ahead.
Well, I'm doing, it's not a live action production, but an Unreal experience. And part of the gag of we're limited by the camera, but, 5 to 10 feet, like, it's kind of essential for the experience.
Yeah.
It's tough because you don't want to run into anything, but it's actually, I think it's really a lot better than sitting.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you because, I mean, I can't get into the details, but yeah, USC, some of the things we're working on is completely free movement within the environment and different ways to move as well. Not even just thinking about walking, but dance performance freely within an environment. Basically environment full of like sensors taking in tons of data. Non-tethered, Bluetooth headsets as well. So yeah, I think that's very, very interesting.
I can talk a little bit about one project we're working on that's dealing with another issue that's coming up storytelling wise, and that is sort of perspective within there and sort of first person versus third person and having an avatar, not having an avatar. We're doing sort of an episodic series called First Person, which is about a guy going out on a series of dates. And so going back to this concept of intimacy, and there really is sort of one focal point, which is the person you're out on a date with. But in this one, you're sort of inside this guy's head. You're not, you don't have control over any sort of body. And in fact, there is no body visible in the space, but you're hearing him talk. So it's a little bit
Which kind of sucks when you're going out on a date and it's
right. You discover you have no body.
Yeah.
But so you're sort of hearing his voice and you're sort of existing inside of his head. And so the playing with this idea of how much control a user is going to have. And in fact, sort of the response when you don't have control or when you find that your avatar is doing things that you may not agree with. And especially on a date, that's can be a high stress situation.
Are you modeling all like the psychological processes of the character's mind and perspective? Because once you go inside a character's head, there's very interesting subjective character perceptual experiences you can do with audio.
Oh yeah.
Oh, lots of stuff. And then where that gives you the most intimate experience because then you totally feel what the protagonist feels.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's a lot of Foley type stuff. So not only hearing their footsteps, but also hearing like the cloth movement of their clothes, all that stuff. That really completely would embody you inside that character. So I guess just FYI to folks out there.
Okay, I'm watching our time. This is our official near end, but we can roll if anybody wants to continue the conversation, if you guys don't mind. The next panel it will be here, and we're just going to roll in and switch out our panelists and start talking about post-production and distribution experiences. But for now, we're just going to kind of keep doing this. Yes.
There were a bunch of things you guys said you would show us later. So
Okay. Thank you. That's a good point. Did someone of you guys want to come back and do? I think Chanel, you had something more. Did you get cut off, or was that something?
I could show a couple of things.
Yeah,
we get to see the Leviathan.
Yeah, there was gonna be a whale coming.
And I could show the Huxleys too.
Okay.
Right, the whale. Is there anything you want to do more on that?
Yeah, I'll show the whale.
Okay.
Yeah, but actually, what I wanted to say also is that so we created a couple of apps so that I could actually demonstrate the augmented reality stuff on a smaller scale and not be able to bring multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment everywhere I go, because Intel and USC wouldn't appreciate that. But what I thought was very interesting, what we found is that, and again, audio is really one of the big key true features to immersion, is that we demonstrated a lot of the stuff without the sound first. And even with all this multi-million dollars, like, equipment and technology and development, people were first like, yeah, that's interesting. And then when we turn the sound on, they're like, I get it. That's fantastic. The world is alive and the creatures are amazing. So audio really truly does make a difference. And you think that's obvious, but it's not obvious. I've actually seen a ton of VR experiences with a lot of people not even thinking about doing audio whatsoever. And that's really unfortunate.
Do you want to set something else up, or okay? While she's doing that, any other comments down the line? Kara, do you have anything, other thoughts on the? I just want to make sure we've given you a chance to speak more.
I've spoken.
Okay.
I'm just really excited about it. It was such a great experience. not so sure about when you were talking about the theater people coming into the film. I think it's very different acting. I've studied all film acting, so when I went into a theater, I wasn't really welcome so much because I didn't speak like I was a theater actor. I didn't walk like I was a theater actor. And I think it's the same going from theater to film. It's very subtle. We're not playing to the audience. We're in the moment. So I don't know how that would go, but I do think it might weed out a lot of actors that aren't serious.
Do you think it'll make you feel any different? I don't know that you got this so much in Manslaughter, but knowing the audience is like right there. I mean, we didn't put you that close to the camera, but very well could be scenes in VR film where you're really close up to the actors. I mean, to the audience, even though you can't.
Well, no, because when you're acting, you're in the moment. You're not thinking about the audience or anything else. You're in the moment, like, you know. So that doesn't even come across.
Okay. Yes, are we ready on this? Yeah.
Just bring up something that was also
Sure.
Mr. Southard, you talked about a certain type of story that should be told in this medium. I was wondering if you could give examples or elaborate specifically.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of ones that we were sort of basic genres or types of story. I mean, you know, because there is this sort of like sheen of unreality about it. I mean, it's a virtual reality, but it is virtual. You know, things that have, I talk a lot about it, you know, stories that are prominently feature dreams, because it feels very dreamlike. There feels like there's sort of this like gauzy, you know, there's a little bit of a scrim, you know, sort of separating you, even though you are totally in this environment, because it's such a new kind of environment. It feels alien in the way that a dream can do. The fact that you have a sort of half presence in these worlds means that like ghost stories are really, I think could be really, really interesting for VR. And then also, you know, because right now everybody's talking about sort of stories that come in sort of 2 to 4 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, in these very sort of short punches. It's, you know, I think in an interesting way, you can tell sort of very big stories and just pull very small moments from these stories, sort of relying on audiences' abilities. You know, especially within genres, sci-fi and big, you know, action and superhero movies and stuff like that. These sort of the very experiential moments of those stories can become their own sort of episodes, and then relying on the audience and as we talked about, other platforms and other forms of media to sort of do the rest of the storytelling.
You ready?
Yeah.
What you want to show?
Yeah, sure.
What are we seeing?
Oh,
Or
you
you're-
gotta turn up the volume. Be shy.
Wow. It's really amazing.
Sometimes he's finicky. There he is. That's too bad.
Can the audio go up back there? Yeah, it's pretty.
It's just a bunch of mathematical algorithms that are generating all the art, the animation, the audio. And then I'll bring out the Huxleys. So the Huxleys, we did this without a target. The Huxleys were basically these sort of jellyfish-like, octopus-like creatures that the Leviathan whale would spew out, and they're like these manned ships that would go and like get electricity out of clouds and then charge the whale ship. So this is like a whole set of stories. This is based on Scott Westerfield's set of novels.
Is this going to be, is this something that's going to be available for VR? Or are they working?
We were working on a VR experience where you can actually go inside the ship and move around and basically do like cocktail party effect, where you can like hone in on certain conversations that different crew members are having and walk around and go to different parts of the deck. So yeah, it's something we're working on. But I guess the point is that, where is he? There he is. You know what, I'm wondering if I can turn it up. So now we have like a whole range, we had to create like a whole range of sounds for these adorable little creatures that if they existed in real life would probably electrocute you. I like the But you know, the biggest point I want to make here is that, you know, with all this technology getting, all this AR and all these creatures, how we really brought them to life and created this rich world was completely through sound, but through very classical sound design means. You know, basically, for me to have designed the audio for like the Huxley, I immersed myself in like the Huxley. Like I became like the Huxley, kind of what an actor does. You know, what would a Huxley sound like? And creating the sounds like that. So again, I want to press that point that everybody keeps thinking about, oh, what's the tech? What's the tech? How do we realize our audio is like text? Well, the technology is there to realize our creative vision, but we first have to have the creative vision. And a lot of what can be beautifully done in audio, we don't need to be thinking about like, oh, what's the next new like binaural or ambisonic like technology. First think about classical sound design needs and design something aesthetically. Then think about like, you know, with like doing different things with ambisonics and localized point sources help out. But ultimately, as I said, I've seen experiences using one very technical, very localized ambisonic, and one not technical, but done in an aesthetic way. And I can tell you the aesthetic one was the successful and pleasing one versus the highly realistic sound composition one. So something always to think about.
Cool. Anybody else want watermelon for lunch? Yes, please.
So what was the difference between the experience we have right now and the earliest one that you showed us at a conference when the CEO was talking, and then the well was just like around the room. Right now, it was only like. So what would be they need to have the
They were iPads. iPads, and also we had very expensive cameras all around the room because we basically generated a giant whale that swam around this conference room. There was 5,000 people at this conference. The other thing is, incidentally, again, we made the whale come to life through audio, through frequencies, low frequencies. So we wanted to use audio not only to represent its sounds, but to give it its presence and its immense size. So we actually used so many low frequencies that we shook a ballroom at the Venetian Hotel. So when like the whale swam over people, like you actually felt the whale. But yeah, I mean, for me to have like brought like a giant whale here, I would have had to have brought multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment. I mean, right now it's just easy that I can just bring my iPad and we develop a special app where I can just at least bring a little whale out to see you.
Are you gonna start utilizing it in a concert, like Michael Jackson in a concert, and I don't know, like it just.
Well, that's interesting because like the whole like they hate it actually when I say hologram because they're like, it's not a hologram. But the whole Michael Jackson and Tupac stuff that actually came out of the USC Creative Technologies department, creating all the facial type stuff. So that's all being worked on. All that stuff of like huge like being able to have concert experiences with people who have like passed.
Right, but I'll consider it.
Let me go to another question here real quick. Yes, ma'am, and then yes, sir. Okay.
That's a completely proprietary built app that I just used. I mean, it's not something that will ever be released. It's something for me to demonstrate the technology at,
Go ahead.
at
Yes.
conferences.
Yes, sir. I'm just watching our time here real quick for us.
So, I'm an artist. I did storyboards for like cartoons and television and stuff. And I understand, like, to me, this is like the AR and VR is an opportunity to tell stories in very interesting ways, and so many different ways. It's like really like a whole different medium completely. But I have no idea. I'm not a tech guy. To where to even like start to figure out how to even write, create, produce, whatever it is. I don't have that means. I don't go to USC. It's not yet or anything like that. But like I want to start. I know you have to like just create. You have to. Where do you start? It's different from.
Well, I'm going to real quick give an answer. But right, I said just even his camera. I mean, just taking a low res camera and start playing. I think it's just like the old Super 8. I mean, it's like just start from. This would be my encouragement. Is just start telling stories. Find the lowest res, cheapest way you can just start telling. And just start playing with it. I think that's just what we're all going to have to start doing.
You have your phone. So if you have a phone, if you buy this, if you buy cardboard, you ended up spend like $225 and you can do virtual reality already.
And in the next panel, we'll talk about how you would then get that into someone's HMD. It's a two-part deal.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is like in terms of learning how it functions and the kinds of stories and when you're starting to write, like I would say go to some immersive theater, which is a really good analog for how it works, and just start to sort of understand how they're trying to tell stories, because they believe me are dealing with the same issues that we are from a storytelling perspective and how to guide an audience's attention. And so that's from a practical level, because I say this to people who are starting to get interested in it, is like you do have to sort of familiarize yourself with the rules and the sort of the way in which it operates, storytelling. And if you don't have access to a headset, you don't have access to that, immersive theater is its own sort of mini fad going on, and there's plenty of that kind of stuff
Manslaughter
happening.
was definitely a close cousin to immersive theater. Any other comments from the panel before?
But yeah, I just want to say, but still also never lose the fact that like the classical rules of telling story is always going to be ultimately king.
Story. That's yes. Anybody else? And then we'll wrap up and take a little break, and we'll bring our new panel on. Any other? Yes, sir.
How far away are we from long form sort of immersive storytelling? When do you think a 360 feature film, how far away are we from that?
We're in pre-production on one right now, so I don't think we're very far.
I did my first one in 2011, 60 minutes. So it's there. It's about, perhaps not in the theaters right now, but it's getting there, right? So you have Barco, Escape, cinema theaters right now, like almost 100 over the country. So they'll probably get the next, I don't know, Star Wars to that kind of theater. So yeah, it's happening.
And also this is revolutionizing education as well. There's some very progressive schools that are starting to use AR in their teaching. I know that when I first showed this demo at a school, they were like, wow, the whale, we could teach, this is like Moby Dick. And, we started like kind of showing this to students, and they're like, this is amazing. Like we feel more engaged and interactive with our lessons versus just being a passive learning experience.
Okay, I want to wrap this one up. I want to really thank this panel for coming, and thank you guys. And we'll take about a 10-minute break, bring on our next panel, and start talking about post-production and distribution.
Thank you.